Hi guys, Henry Har here. With me as always is the punk rock brother man, Mr. Johnny Noise.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another great show. Uh, Helmets on, seatbelts on, and let's get to it. Have a really cool show coming your way.
All right, let's welcome Mr. Ian from the Subjunctives back to the channel.
Yeah, brother.
How you doing, Ian?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm
Nice to
doing
meet
No
you.
good.
problem. Yeah, it's good to have you back, man. So how are things going, man?
Oh, good. Just working, being a dad, taking care of my mom, uh, and then doing this band stuff on the side, doing lots of doing lots of shows, working on new songs, breaking in a new drummer, not kind of like a new old drummer really. So keeping busy, but I'm enjoying the long weekend, which is pretty awesome. And I got to go back to work tomorrow, which I'm not
Uh,
psyched about.
Nobody is.
yeah,
I got to do it.
Monday. I know the feeling. Tomorrow's Monday, but it's my Friday. But it's Monday's Monday regardless. so,
Yeah,
so,
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
so you mentioned that you have a new drummer. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah. Yeah, well, basically, our old drummer that we had for probably, I don't know, 4 years, like something like that, Wendell, him and his partner, they are having they now have had the baby. And so he kind of needed to take a step back from being in so many bands, and, kind of focus on family stuff. So, unfortunately, he, kind of had a, had to step away from the subjunctives, very in good standing. We're still all friends. But he had family had to take priority, which that happens. Not everybody wants to be in a punk rock band 2 nights a week, for the rest of their life. So people have. I always say people have their arc, in the story, and they come in, and they contribute, and when they're done, they go on, and no hard feelings. And he's not the first drummer that we've had either. That things have changed over the years. So yeah, I was kind of in a pickle. We were, as I may have mentioned, I run a small local musical festival every year called the Seattle Pop Punk Festival. 3 days, and we have like 15 bands, and I always want to get the subjunctives on it, and we didn't have a drummer, and we kept trying people out, and they were not really fitting, and uh, then I was like, Sicko was also going to play, and so Josh and I were practicing, for Sicko one time. Denny was out, and then I said, dude, would you consider just playing a few subjunctive songs with us, like so we can get on the gig? And he said, sure. And, we had a really fun time. Sounded super good. He and I played music together for 35 years. So he's pretty good. We kind of know each other pretty well, really close friends. So it was a pretty natural fit. And then at the end of it, he said, yeah, I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to keep doing it. And so I was like, all right, that's great. So now, we've got a pretty tight set. Um, we're practicing 2 days a week, which is great. That's kind of where bands sound good,
Mhm.
I think. Anything less than that, you kind of tend to start getting worse over time. And then now we've written 4 new songs, and we're talking about doing. The question right now is, do we do an EP or do we do an LP? You know, uh, I don't really know which. We're gonna figure out studio time pretty soon here, so I'm pretty excited about it. Josh is a new kind of person in the band. A new person in the band with a lot of new energy, and it's always great when a new person comes in with a lot of new energy, because that just gives us all the more sort of gas to get to the next next milestone. So it's just wonderful to have that energy and interest and passion, because me and Jeff, the bass player, can kind of absorb some of that, and help us to get to that next juncture. So it's pretty cool. I'm really excited about it. I love playing with my buddies, so it's cool to have a dear old friend back with us. And then it sounds good. I'm not really having to tell anybody how to play pop punk. Like, he knows that stuff as well as anybody in the world. And so it's a real pleasure, to be honest with you. So I feel lucky that we have this moment.
Wow, that's cool. That's when you have something like that and everybody kind of gels. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
that's
Oh
that's
man.
that's when you have something kind of special. You know, we've been down that path too, where we just have a group of folks that just happen to really we're hitting on all the same notes. We're all walking the same line, so to speak, and there was no, okay, well, get back over here. It's everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a that's when good things that's when
Well,
good things happen musically when everybody's got the same
I think
mindset. You
that's
know what I
right.
mean? You're
Yeah.
not like, okay, we're butting heads,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's
Yeah. There's so much, interesting complexity to songwriting and to gelling as a
right,
band. There's so many things that can be good or bad, with that. We definitely changed how we're playing our songs since Josh joined. He plays a little different than Wendell. And so we're kind of morphing into that new band. I mean, it's the same song as in the same band, but we are playing a little differently. But I really agree with you, Johnny. Like, if when you've got sort of folks on the same page, that's when you can really make great strides and you can create. You're not sort of worrying about the mechanics. You're just letting the actual art happen, and that is not always the case. That often you're struggling to just find somebody who gets what you're trying. I'm like, if you have to tell a drummer, please don't play so many drum fills, like you kind of, and at least in our music, you have a pretty big problem. It's like, it's just not the style, and it's like, maybe they want to play like that. I'm just making an
right,
example, and it's like, well, how do you convince someone to not play the way they want to play? And so it's a whole
sure,
thing, right? But when you've got somebody who knows and feels the same way like you do about it, then the sort of the wheels are on the car, the gas is in the tank, and it's like, where you go with it is up to you, but like the machinery
correct,
is in
yeah,
place, if
right,
that makes
right.
sense.
Oh, I get it. I get it. You got another question there, Henry?
Yeah. So, if we can, because we kind of touched on a few songs the last time we talked from the album, but
Yeah.
this time I think if we can go down, maybe go down the list, of track by track, and you can give
Sure.
a little
Yeah.
synopsis or a little background on the on the tracks. So let's start with
Yeah.
"We're Not Friends Anymore." What?
Oh. Yeah, maybe that's the only political song on the whole record. I don't write a lot of political songs, not really. I'm interested in politics, but I've never really mixed in with music. But I had a pretty tough time, um, over COVID, and I grew up in a pretty conservative environment, and had a lot of old friends and family members from that world. And that's not really the punk rock world, and that's not really like kind of where I've ended up in life. And so the kind of tensions of that moment, of that period of time, really made me kind of reflect on who I was spending my time with, and what kind of behavior I was, tacitly endorsing by sort of remaining in relationships with people that, weren't behaving well. And I had to, kind of cut a few people off. And, the working title for that song was, I tend to write really long, ridiculous titles, and then Jeff tells me to make it shorter. But like the working title was "You dicks got my first 50, you won't get my last 25," and um, now and then they said let's just shorten that down. So we're not friends anymore is the title of the song. It's hard to let go where you come from, and just a lot of where I came from was not something that fit for me, like in who I've become, and I had a hard time with, and sort of staying around that. And so I just finally was like, yeah, that's enough of that. And I moved on. And so that song is really about moving on, and just sort of saying, yeah, it's about enough of that.
Okay. Yeah. So like, yeah, you definitely, you know, it's hard when when uh when you sit back and you realize kind of like what's going on here, like, and you start realizing that
Yeah.
climate that you thought you were really comfortable in, you're really not. That
Yeah.
that I totally get that. I totally understand that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
I
sometimes
always sort of
you
felt
gotta
like,
cut it. Sometimes you gotta cut it. You don't necessarily maybe you know have to cut somebody off completely, but there's the ones that you do and there's the ones that you don't.
I sort of felt like one of the sort of like kind of what I thought sort of was something that was the way I've thought about it anyway is like something about the 90s and 90s culture sort of you know put me in the position, I think a lot of people, of hey, I'm friends with everybody. I get along with these guys, I get along with those guys, I get along with the crust punks, I get along with the skinheads, whatever, and uh I think that is in some ways a little self-indulgent, and I think there comes a time when you have to sort of examine who you're, when you're friends with people, you're into some respect, and some to some degree, you're endorsing, you're saying, yeah, this is a person who's cool enough for me to hang out with, and you're tacitly endorsing their behavior, and I found myself at a place where I was like, well, man, I don't want to hang out with people like this, and it was hard because we were also, just on a personal level, friends, we'd been almost like family. In some cases, we're family. And, for many, many years. So it was a hard decision, but it was also like, yeah, I'm not down with this, and so it was a kind of a growing up for me. It's like, yeah, there are some times where you can't just be everybody's friend. You can't just be cool with whatever from everybody. Anyway, that's what that story is about. It's kind of veiled, so nobody knows who I'm talking about. But like, yeah, that is what that was all about.
Yeah.
I was trying to go for kind of a Lemonheads,
Lemon
kind of
head
early
thing. Yeah.
Lemonheads vibe in it.
Yeah.
And, which is funny because they had a song and a record called "Hate Your Friends." So maybe there's something in there. I don't know.
Okay. How about the second track? Oh, by the way, guys, in case y'all missed the first interview with Ian, the record is called "The Subjunctives." Let's try this again. Um, so let's go with the second track. How about "Goodbye"? I will not miss you, dicks. What's the story behind that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these songs are pretty on the nose. I started work at this new company as a manager, and I got the worst team ever. They were, if you go and I don't know if you ever do a manager job, like, and you change to a new company, they don't give you like the awesome team
No.
that everybody else wanted. They give you the team that nobody else wanted. And so I had kind of the bad news bears, and they were dicks. And I spent a year with them. They were just so bad, and I was fantasizing about quitting my job, uh, which in a sense I did. I transferred to a different part of my company, and did a different job. And I just remember thinking, goodbye, I will not miss you, you dicks. And somebody said, like, it's a contender for best I'm quitting my job after you can take this
Yeah.
job and shove it. I feel like, I do like to write in general about subjects that I feel like people will relate with. I think part of the puzzle of songwriting is, finding something about that's true, that you're not just making up stuff, but that also is something that will resonate with the listener, that they can also see themselves in, so that it's like a combination of authenticity and relatability, which is, I don't know, that's hard for me. I'm sure there's other people who are a lot easier, but this was one that I thought some people could relate to. It's like we're all these middle-aged guys out here, doing this great hobby, but also like trying to make a living, pay down house payment or for some kids or whatever we're doing. And like, you know, we all have that job. We're just like, oh man, these guys
So
are dicks.
that's
Yeah.
that's part of it. You come into a position and they're like, well, we're going to give you like the shitty crew. Let's see if he can fix it. You know what I mean? Like,
The
you're like,
worst,
no.
worst. Like, oh, you're gonna go to a new company and you get a big job.
No,
Oh
no.
man. If anybody wanted that team, they would have had
Right, right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been there 5 years now, and it's
Yeah,
fine now. But like that first year was
good.
boneless.
All right. How about track 3? I don't have the time.
um, so that one Jeff wrote, our bass player. It was an interesting one. Like I wrote it as like a jangle pop song for another band I was jamming for. Didn't end up going anywhere. And then I was, it was kind of like the intro and the lead were working pretty good. But Jeff was like, I don't like this. Let me take this and try and write something for it. And so he took it and he came back with a really simple verse, which is about, you know, arguing with dumbasses on the internet. Like, I feel like something happened in the last couple of years. Maybe it's just my friend group, but there was like a time when everybody's like, "Oh man, these guys, they're such idiots on Facebook. I was totally telling them what's up." And then like something happened where everyone's like, "Oh, I'm done arguing with these people. I can't." It's so what a waste of time arguing with some anonymous rude person somewhere in America or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and so that is Jeff basically saying, "I do not have the time to talk to you about your stupid opinion." Like he just doesn't uh, care. You can probably see how some of this record, particularly the title, even is a result of that time of COVID and lockdowns and politicization and people arguing and tension. So there's we don't try to be too heavy of a band, but you can see some of that
Oh yeah,
frustration coming
definitely.
out in the lyrics.
Definitely. So let's talk about definitely one of my favorite tracks from the album, Smart Punks.
Yeah, that was a really fun one. So I was a big follower of Maximum Rock and Roll back in the day, and I loved reading all the articles and stuff. And I had a lot of respect for Larry Livermore of Lookout Records, and he used to talk about smart punks. And he would talk about bands like the Mr. T Experience, talk about bands like J Church and Jawbreaker and these kind of bands for being sort of a little bit intellectual. I was always really drawn to that. Probably the first smart punk I ever come across was Bad Religion. It's such an intellectual singer with such thoughtful lyrics, and I was always just really impressed by his singing and all the stuff he had to say, and even if it was a little preachy at times, and then coming across bands like Cringer and Mr. T Experience, I was like, oh my gosh, like not only is there fun punk music, but there's also fun punk music by people that are like clearly very intelligent. And I've always been really drawn to intellectuals and smart people. For whatever reason, it really draws me in. And so the idea, because punk had been so negative and so kind of anti-intellectual for so long, that I kind of like, and that's not always true, that's sort of generalization, but I think certainly come out of like 80s hardcore and the sort of, especially the retro sort of punk stuff that was going on in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a lot of like, I mean, the dwarves, blood, guts, and pussy is clever, but it's not super, intellectual. And like, it's a great
Yeah.
record. But, and I love that sort of overt, intelligence. Anyway, so I reached out to Larry and I said, hey, I want to, read more about smart punk, and got some quotes from him. And then I went back and I went through the whole Maximum Rock and Roll archive, Punk Planet, a couple other things, right? These various magazines, right? And just that people have archived up on the internet. And I just read every occurrence of that. And I took quotes from people arguing about it and, right out of there. And so it was really like a real little research project for me. And, and so it was it was just sort of, it was a thing that I wanted to be back in the day. I was like, this is what I want to be, but I didn't feel like I was. And getting to be around those guys, I was like, oh wow, I was so excited but
Right.
nervous. And then like I remember thinking, oh, I was going to meet Aaron and Frank from Mr. T Experience, and now they're my friends, right? Like, so I'm not worried about this kind of stuff. But I thought I better have something really smart to say. So I remember reading some things and coming up with some smart topics to talk about with them when I met them, because we were going to go on tour with them. And like that didn't really happen. Like they weren't interested in like having some kind of intellectual debate about some political subject or something. Like they were just fun guys that wanted to, go on a rock tour and meet girls and drink beers and whatever. Like, but like.
Oh.
Oop,
Oh.
one of
Oh.
his. I know he had his phone plugged in.
Yeah. We'll get back.
Guys, we'll have him back here in a second, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just connecting. So
Yeah. Live TV. This is what happens with live TV.
yeah,
That's okay.
yeah, it's all right. He'll be back on.
He'll be back in a second. That's one thing I kind of, we had discussed in the beginning of doing this. There's no edits here, guys. We go, uh, whatever happens, happens, and we just keep on going, and hopefully he'll be back here in a second. Now I lost his frame is out completely off of the screen here.
Yeah, he probably had to leave and he'll come back.
Yeah, I know he was plugging in his camera or his phone or something. So give him a few. We'll see we can get him back. Cool guy. I mean, he's definitely not one that's lost for words. He's definitely you can tell he's smart, and he's got this this kind of his view on music and what he his
Oh
perception.
yeah, definitely.
Not necessarily. Everybody has their own views and their own likes and dislikes, and for several reasons, and so. But yeah, he's definitely. Hopefully, we'll get him back here soon, guys. We're waiting for him to reconnect here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. We were clicking along so good, man. I'm like, okay, here it's going.
Yeah, I want to hear the rest of the story.
And all of a sudden, yeah, one flash, and we lost our guest here temporarily. Hopefully, like I said, he'll click back in here shortly. So I'm trying to get used to. So I remounted my TV. For those of you just wondering why is he looking up? I mounted my TV up because it was down. So I put it on this shelf, and so it's a much better view of everything. So I'm looking up at the monitor, so it does give you that kind of illusion. Why is he looking up at the ceiling? Well, I'm not looking. I'm trying to see everybody on a larger screen, vice versa. There
There
we
he
go.
is.
Hey, we're
All right,
back.
Ian. Sorry we lost.
Hey guys, so
We
Yes.
sorry
can.
about. Can
We
you
can.
hear me? So sorry about that. My phone just died there, so I'm
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
very
No
sorry.
problem. No problem.
yeah, we've gone through this before, where either Henry or I had an issue, someone dropped out or had to leave a room. We just keep going. So
Yeah.
we do. That's one thing that we were just saying that when you were trying to reboot is we don't, there's no edits here. Whatever happens is straight live, and then we just recover from wherever we left off, which I think is cool in a way because it's not, it's not made up. If someone loses a connection or we have whatever, this is a for real, thing. So, now
Yeah,
you
that's awesome.
went crooked on us.
I mean,
There you go. No,
Okay.
there you go.
see, I can't see me, but I guess you can see me,
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yeah.
I can't see you either, Henry,
Oh,
but I
well,
guess
it might we might come back on, but we can see you and we can hear you
Yeah,
perfectly.
you're fine.
So
You're
you're
fine.
good.
okay.
You're good. Uh,
So now you have like an imaginary friend, so you can add that to your list.
yeah. Um, so
Imaginary friend Henry.
Like, why are you talking to a blank phone? Well, my therapist said it's good for me.
yeah, right. Um,
Oh my gosh.
so
Well, where did I lose you?
so you did mention like Bad Religion. Aren't those dudes
Yeah.
and also with running Epitaph Records? I heard that those guys are lawyers too,
Yeah.
or one or two of them are lawyers or
I
something
don't
like that.
know.
Um,
Maybe, yeah, probably. I mean, I know that the singer is a PhD and was a lecturer at a university. I don't remember
and
which subject in,
and
but
you
maybe
mentioned one
history.
of my favorite singers in the song from one of my other favorite groups, the Descendants. You mentioned Milo Ackerman, and I know he was a
Yeah,
scientist for a while, and uh,
yeah,
I think he was a
that's right.
biochemist, if I'm not mistaken. So,
I think that's
so
correct.
that's
Yep. Yeah, those guys are all really inspiring to me. I love that punk, has room for like an intellectual vein as well. And that, I mean, that's kind of where we saw ourselves with bands like we used to play with Jawbreaker and J Church and those kind of bands. And it's like, that's kind of felt like where we fit in. Um, we weren't sort of doing like this sort of bratty, potty humor stuff of like Blink 182 and that kind of stuff. And we weren't doing tough guy stuff. We weren't really doing very political stuff. So, it's like, but there was this sort of maybe what I like to think of as a little bit poetic sort of, part of it, of the genre that little corner that we fit into. And I feel like the subjunctives are, mining the same vein, really.
awesome. Um, now this one I do have I'm really ready to hear the background on this one. A ghost across my bow.
Yeah. So, uh, yeah, that was me trying to be poetic. So the idea was to write a song. Uh, so it's trying to be a little artsy, a little poetic. It's about my wife, but it's about the sort of a cycle of life, and the cycle of a relationship and the cycle of a day, all three pieces together. So like the first part is in the morning and there's all this attraction and beauty, and then you know um, then there's the second verse, which is in the middle of the day, the sun's coming straight down, and we're sort of laboring with children and gardens and things like that. And then uh, at the third piece is the end of the day, it's the end of our lives, and we're together. It's just the two of us, and I'm sort of caring for one another, and sort of, the metaphor of cold and death at the end there. And so the idea is to sort of follow the arc of this relationship over a lifetime, but also talk about it in the frame of a day. And the ghost is just me sort of catching sight of my wife in the morning, and she's like a ghost going across the bow of a ship. And so that's where I got the idea. Uh, and yeah, so that's it. That's a little bit of a, you know, uh, I don't know. That's sort of a little
Oh
arty.
yeah, definitely, because like the reason I
Maybe.
wanted to know about it is because I don't want to say it's the anomaly song of the record, but it's definitely lyrically it was a bit more deeper, you know. Or at least that's the way I
Yeah.
took it. Now, uh,
Yeah, it was. That's true. That's right, Henry. Yeah, and like it's me sort of trying to go into my Husker kind of big open chords Husker Du kind of vibe. Um, but yeah, it's also reflective too, right? Like the the person who's telling the story is, he's asking, am I a good man, throughout the course of it. Like, and the idea is, sort of self-questioning throughout this cycle. So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit deeper. We don't play. I want to get back to playing that one. We had when Josh came in, we asked him to just pick songs that he wanted to do, and he did not pick that one. But I'm going to try and get him to put it back on the
definitely,
list.
definitely, I think it's excellent. Um,
Thank you.
okay, so here we go. With speaking of Cringer and J Church, it's a shame we didn't get more
Yeah.
time, Lance. Talk about that one.
Yeah, well, so I kind of got turned on to pop punk listening. Denny told me to listen to Cringer, and I bought the Karen 7-inch by them, and it really opened my mind, blew my mind. It was like almost as much as when I first heard the Fastbacks, because I just didn't realize that there was this kind of happy-go-lucky, joyous music that you could do in punk, and it was a real kind of validation that this existed. To me, it was a validation. The fact that it existed was because I was like, oh, I can do the thing. There's permission to do the thing that is in my heart, and so I, Lance was sort of a figure. He was one of the fixtures of the scene, right? He was one of these guys writing these songs at the time in Cringer, and then very quickly after that in J Church. Um, and I just really admired him, and I wanted to model songs after that. And Sicko definitely wrote some Cringer, rip off type songs. And then like then we met him, and we became, we would go on the road together. We had the same booking agent, played shows together, and I would say we became friends over time. And then I had gone, basically, I dropped out of music and everything, moved to Europe to go to grad school. And I was over there listening to a ton of J Church and a ton of Band of Horses. Those are my two. Oh, and maybe also uh, the gosh, what do they call that? They made that record, 69 Love Songs. I'll think of the name of the band in a minute. Anyway, so there's these sort of three bands I listened to um, quite a bit over there to sort of connect me back with the U.S. and home. And um, like, I didn't realize that Lance had died. And he had he had undiagnosed high blood pressure, and that'll just kill you very quietly. And so he basically had a lot of health problems. Kidneys were screwed, heart was screwed, and then he died, like doing dialysis one day. And I found out about 6 months after the fact, and it was very, you know, it was a big moment for me because I was living this. I finished grad school. I was working in Europe, and I was sort of living this very different lifestyle, and it had nothing to do with music or punk or any of that stuff. And like I had always thought that I could come back and do it again, and that really that realization, I was coming up out of the tube in London to go to my job at this bank, and I was like, and I saw it. I remember that day I was going down the tube, like, I wonder what Lance is up to, and I was googling around on my phone, and you can't get this reception down there. And then I came up, and then I saw the article, and it was like, oh God, he died, and it made me realize that I could never really go back to that world, like to that, wonderful sort of, 1990s pop punk underground scene. And not in just the sense that, well, we're never going to play with J Church again, we're never going to see Lance again, but also in the sense, that I was in my 30s and mid 30s and not, a young guy anymore, and that world was gone. And so it was a big sort of moment for me to realize that path was closed. And so I wanted to write a song. I'd wanted to write a song for Lance about the sort of development of my relationship with him, from being a fan to being a friend and a colleague, and then, to being a mourner. Um, and and it did really strike me that, uh, it was a shame. It always, with him, it was always like you'd see him, he would be just like you had seen each other 3 days ago, last week, even if you hadn't seen him for a year. He's just very comfortable and easy person. We'd be playing at a show, and there is, hey, what's up, and it always felt like there was more time. And uh, and there wasn't actually, and I didn't know that. And I remember, like, the last time we played together, uh, they had made these hilarious hoodies. They were one of the first bands to do this. They made a J Church hoodie, black hoodie, and it had the black flag bars and J Church, like, in the black flag logo. And I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen, because this is like, 1997 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, Lance, I've got to get that. And he's like, oh, I already loaded up the car. Just get one the next time we come through. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And that was the last time I saw him. And so it was, I just always wanted to make a musical tribute to him, and so talk about, all the little vignettes, and all the things in that story are true. They're all things that happened. Some of them are quite funny. And I reached out to the members of J Church and Cringer and his partner, and some of the guys from Jawbreaker, shared old photos with me, of him. And so I put together a slideshow video, with a lyric video with slideshow of all Lance stuff. And that's one of the videos that we play on the internet to find new fans and stuff. And so it's a special song to me. It's also, I just love it because it's very much like a J Church song in the structure we wrote it. But Jeff came up with this great hook in this backing vocal in the chorus that just really makes the song work. So it's a great example of us coming together as a band, but also it's me sort of completing something I'd always wanted to do, as a, just about Lance and for
Oh,
Lance.
cool. That you mentioned you were educated abroad. What studies were you involved?
I
MBA.
did an
Okay.
MBA.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I studied in England for a year, did my MBA over there, and worked for a bank in England
Wow.
for a
That's
while.
that's that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
interesting experience, and really, a lot of fun. Like, it was a very ancient university, and a lot of crazy old
Oh, sure.
traditions
Yeah.
and stuff, um, and like, very, like, just different. It's like a really different environment than here, and different than the how people get educated here. Like, the way that they think of education and examinations and stuff, and you kind of have to dress like Harry Potter there a little bit. Like, if you go to take an exam, you have a cape, like, and a tuxedo, and you have to wear that stuff when
Oh my
you
God.
take an exam.
That's
It's
great.
very crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sounds pretty formal, man.
well, yeah. It's an experience, though. It's an
it's the most. It's very formal. That's right. Yeah.
uh, how about
So
don't want to be a leader, don't want to be led?
yeah, that's a good one to follow. That, I mean, it's sort of ostensibly, it's sort of kind of like where Goodbye Will Not Miss You, You Dicks meets up with It's a Shame We Didn't Get More Time, Lance. So, like they're always asking you in your job, where do you want to be in 5 years? I'm just like, not working here, like, and my company is one of these where they're like, well, we got to get you promoted. Got you to do this, you got to do that so we can get you promoted. And I'm like, man, if I get promoted, you guys are going to shake my hand for 1 minute and then you're going to be like, just beat me over the head to do more work, right? Like, so I don't want to do that. I don't want to get promoted. That's like I feel like that's a trap. Like I could spend my whole life, trying to fight other guys at a higher level for more air. So, um, that song is about them trying to get me to do that and me going, I don't want to do that. And like also just kind of the futility. It's like, gotta to get to work, you have to have a car. So you have to work so you can pay for your car so you can get to work.
Mhm.
And, it's like, why am I doing any of this? It's so stupid. And, but it's also, that's a line from a old Cringer song. I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be led. So that's actually pinched
Oh,
from Lance.
that's pretty interesting. But I get what when I read that title, I kind of got a Ramones' vibe from it in the sense that, you know, the first couple of
Yeah.
Ramones albums always had something that they didn't want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. I always, I very, it's funny you say that, Henry, because like I find myself when I'm writing a new song and I'm just going blah, 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 just making up words, and they're not even like words, like just sounds to try and get what I
Hmm.
want it to sound like. I'll often go, I don't wanna is often the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And I'm not even the world's biggest Ramones fan, but like I don't wanna is such a alliterative and tonally like appealing uh like uh phrase to me. And I always think, okay, I can't do another I don't wanna, right? I can't always do that, but it comes to me very
That's
naturally.
awesome.
And I generally don't wanna. I don't wanna go out. I don't want to do the dishes. I don't
No,
want to go to
no.
work.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, this next one, I really dig this one. This is probably another one of my favorite tracks off the album. The Henry Rollins School of Menacing.
Oh yeah. So Jeff sings that one. Basically the story there is this really good friend. So I you must have seen this video we did about this bar,
Yes.
the Kraken. Yeah, so that's all our friends in the Seattle punk scene. It's our local bar that we all go to, play a million times. All the bartenders, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, um, so after the pandemic, we all started going back there, and we're all just like so relieved to be back, right? And just reconnecting with old friends. And the shows were like everyone was so excited. And anyway, this one friend of ours who I will not name got super buff. Like some of these guys, like I got fatter. I got way fatter over the break. But I have a couple of friends who like took up running and lift weightlifting and stuff. So this one friend of ours got really buff over the time away with COVID and kind of came back with tight t-shirts, and he's sort of one of those kind of harder edge punk guys, and he was sort of like mean mugging people a little bit in the bar, just being a tough guy, so which is funny because he's such a sweet and lovely guy, right? Like, but you could see him kind of feeling his oats a little bit with his new big guns and pecs. And so we wrote a song about him that he had gone to the Henry Rollins School of Menacing.
Wow.
And so we're secretly
Yeah.
making fun of a dear friend that we love. And that was one of those ones where we were just cracking ourselves up. There's a couple other songs like that on here where we're just like writing it and coming up with the lyrics, and the three of us are just cracking ourselves up like, oh, we are so funny, you know. So that's, you know, and Jeff was like, oh, let me do this
Oh,
one, let me do this one. And so he came back with all those lyrics in like one day. He was so excited about
Whose
it.
idea was it to start it with the Rise Above intro? Was that just something that fell into place? Because
You know, I don't remember whose idea it was, but I know exactly how to play that. I played that cover in so many bands. I'm a huge Black Flag fan. I love particularly, like a lot of people say, oh, it's the singer, right? No, not for me. For me, it's the guitar player. I love how he plays guitar. He's one of my most influential guitar players. And so, like, when I see Black Flag even today, I'll be right up there watching him, just how he plays and how he voices everything. And so, someone was like, "Oh, we should just start out the beginning of Rise Above," and I was like, "Oh, got it," you know. And it's funny because you'll play it live and people will like, oh no, these dorks aren't going to try and do this, are they? You know, like, which would be not really something we would do well. We're way too light for that, right? And so it's kind of like we come out of this really dire beginning, you know, and it's one of the most iconic riffs in punk, in my opinion, and then just go right into this very silly pop punk riff. So it's like a huge, it's like just making fun of Black Flag, making fun of our friend, you know, just being completely
that's
silly.
cool. That's cool. Uh, this one I've had I have a question about the next song because basically the next to the title it's got something next to it in parentheses. So the song is called "Believe," and in parentheses next to it it says "rehashed." So what's the story there, bro?
Okay, well, Sicko wrote this song called Rehash back in the early 90s, and it's about stealing songs, you know, from your heroes and then kind of rehashing them. It's one of Denny's songs. And then Denny's new band, the Drolls, Denny's one of the other guitar player in Sicko. His new band, the Drolls, they do an updated version of that song, Rehash. They play it a little slower. It's great. It's one of his best songs. It's such a good song. It's kind of like a little bit indie, like old school indie pop, and a little bit pop punk. Um, and then on their record, that song is titled as Rehashed, and then in
yeah.
parentheses, Rehashed. And so, Believe is a song by Sicko
Mhm.
that I sing on. And um, I thought, well, because Wendell is just a monster drummer. Like, he's had so much power, right? And he's young, right? He's like 38 or whatever. Like, he's just full of it, full of power and strength. And he's a great drummer. And so I was like, let's do like one of the hard, fast Sicko songs, but like, let's do it even faster than Sicko. So it's like 2 beats per minute faster than Sicko played it, which makes it like a pain in the ass to play, to be honest with you. Um, but I knew I could do it with Wendell. And so we did that. And then just like, it's not really changed. It's changed a little bit, I guess I should. It's true. I also changed. I never really liked the way the chorus worked in the original one, and always wanted to change it from a sort of complicated mute picking thing to more of a anthemic open chords thing. And so, for the people that actually would pay attention to something like that, it is a little bit different. And so, it's a rehashed version of that song, "Believe," but it's also sort of a joke, like back at Sicko rehash, again, because it's parenthetically rehashed, just like they did with their song. So that's why that's that way. I think it's a joke that like 4 people in the world get.
Inside joke. Inside joke.
It's, well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's serious inside baseball. Like, I don't even know if all the people in Sicko get that joke.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because I was like, okay, it says "believed," and it's the only song that has parentheses next to it. So I was like, okay, there's got to be some story there. Um,
There's a story. Yeah, you're
um,
right. Yeah.
so how about this next one? Is thanks for driving me home, old friend.
This is another one of these really on the nose songs. So my buddy Chris and I, we're like, he played in my high school butt rock band, and like in the mid '80s, right? And so he and I are still friends. We get together um, uh, often, and one of the things we would do is we go to this one bar and just drink and talk about relationships and our families and life and whatever, and catch up about music um, and his girlfriend will come over and drive us home. So she's really supportive. She's great. She'll like come to the bar and pick you up and take me and him home, which is just great, Kelly. And so me and Chris and Kelly are like driving home through our neighborhood. It's called Ballard here in Seattle, and like. For whatever reason, sometimes my like perception is a little bit can be. I mean, I don't take drugs. I've never taken drugs, but uh, my perception can get a little altered sometimes. Particularly if I've had a few drinks back when I used to drink, and like I just see the world a little differently than I normally would, and things are very sort of can be sort of like very have a lot of meaning to me, and like stuff looks different than it did like it normally would, and so I saw street lights look to me like stars, and so this whole sort of um somewhat dreamlike kind of tone or kind of uh mood kind of came over me just sitting in the back seat of this car, and I was really just like kind of in this strange state, going through the neighborhood and thinking about the other cars passing and the street lights and the familiar buildings and stuff. Um, and I think also just like there's a certain, maybe the other thing that's going on in that story is, I'm really comfortable with those people because I mean, I've known Chris since I was like 16, and he's like he's a person from Seattle, and there's not very many people from here that are here. Like most of those people all moved away because this is a city a lot of people come to for a little while for work. So it's really different than we grew up, and so it's very comfortable to be with him and Kelly, and like I've like can very much relax because I'm really with kind of people that are from where I'm from, my people, and so that's sort of I guess conducive to that sort of altered state. And in this way, I just had this really like kind of fuguey kind of moment. 20 minutes getting driven home was one night, and and I think just sort of more on the nose, it's like I am appreciative that my old friend drove me home after the bar. So it's sort of like another like really on the nose thing about something that happened to me. But the experience was notable because of the way my sort of mind seemed to shift in
I
that
just
evening.
I just listened to that song prior to us coming on, and that's where I kind of got when we discussed before we started to record a little bit of that kind of Green Day influence on that song. Is that if that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, I think that's really
it's
true.
definitely it's catchy. It's got a good hook. It's got a good melody to it. But it has a little bit of an edge to it. Just a whole, but it's. I played it. Actually, I had on the phone, my wife was walking through the living room. We're listening to. So my next interview.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey,
She
that's
goes, "Well,
good.
that's pretty good." 'Cause we had a cast of characters come through. It's like, well, that's pretty good. I'm like, yeah, it's really really good stuff. So I'm like,
That's
wow.
awesome. Please tell
Yeah,
her
yeah,
thank
no
you
doubt.
from us.
So but I definitely heard, and I think she agreed as well. A little bit of that influence from that genre, from that.
I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think of that as part that sort of East Bay
Mhm.
pop punk Green Day, as you're saying. I think of it a little bit stiff little fingers, a little bit guided by voices. And weirdly, I don't think anyone, no, I think other people might get this. The
Or the
Georgia
satellite,
Satellites,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember
Yep.
them, but that, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the stompy, sort of chunky verse. And so yeah, it yeah, I mean a lot of these are, you know, I kind of have probably 10 or 15 influences and they all kind of mix together. But yeah, I mean especially I feel like that beginning with just that's like very like old Green Day stuff, and um, yeah, I hear what you're saying there, and I think it's true. I like Green Day. You know, I take that as a, you know, they're like they're really the first pop punk band I've
Yeah.
ever heard, and I was like, what? You know, and we were super into that first record, 39 Smooth, when it came out. That was sort of like, okay, this and the Fastbacks, very, very powerful motor, were like, okay, this is the real deal. This is our music, you know, and it was so fresh in like 1990,
Yeah.
1989,
Yeah.
1990. It was just like really exciting that people were playing music like that. So I'm always a fan of, I always like it when we get compared to Green Day because it's like, yeah, to me, that's like the, you know, that was money music that that changed my mind and made me want to
Right.
play
Right.
music, you know.
So, who did the vocals on that?
I'm the lead singer on that, and then Wendell, the drummer, and Jeff, the
Wow.
bass player,
Okay.
sing backup vocals.
Wow. I thought it was done really well. I have to say, I was definitely impressed by the song.
Thank you. Jeff superpower. Jeff's a really great all around musician, but his superpower is his harmonization. He
Oh,
was a choir
wow.
boy, like in
Yeah.
church when he was a kid, and he just has it in him to make harmonies. Like it's effortless, and he's always in
Wow.
tune, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
rare.
Right.
he's
Right.
I'm not a very great singer, and he really helps. He'll just get in tune with me, you know. However well I'm doing, like he can kind of make it work, kind of like a Michael Anthony
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
thing from Van Halen.
Well, that's pretty cool.
That's
Uh,
cool. Yeah.
so this next one is probably talking about long song titles. It's probably the longest one on the whole CD. If we ever get out of
Uh
this
oh.
mess, I'm going to do something with my life. I'm not kidding, guys. It's this one here, and it
Wow.
goes all the way across.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is a preposterously long title, which I think is funny when I do that. I think the other guys are like, seriously, Ian? But you know, that was there's actually not a lot to that song. I mean, it was again another COVID sort of in you know inspired song where we're just stuck inside, you know, and stuck inside with my two kids, the cat, and my wife, all going to school and working, you know, remotely from home, and you know, nothing was going on, and I did have a lot of sort of feeling like if this ever gets over with, I want to go do some imports. I want to do get back out there and do stuff, you know, like make a record, and then the whole rest of it is just finding, you know, a zillion kind of 86 cents words that rhyme with each other for sort of ways to be a better person. And we were both like, we did that. And I was like, I mean, I read it down in the studio, like off a lyric sheet. I was like, Jeff's like, we are never doing that song live.
Wow.
Like, wait, how are we going to remember all those words? I go, we're not. So that one has never seen the light of day
Wow.
since.
Um,
That's that's funny.
I was like hardcore with the
I bet.
thesaurus
Yeah. I
on that
bet.
one.
uh,
And the rhyming dictionary, I guess, even more the rhyming dictionary.
well, whatever.
It felt like an English paper,
Like,
you know,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
assignment for English class or something. It's a little bit silly, like kind of like, all right, how many words can you cram in here, kid?
All right. Well, this next one's a lot shorter. Up and down. What sounds like?
You know, this is Jeff's one, and I love it. It's very 90s. I like rip off a Lee from the Laws, the Manchester power pop band from the late 80s, um, which seems to play at everyone's wedding ever. Like, I think I tend to write about stuff that happened to me. Um, Jeff very often, I will say, writes about being annoyed with people. And that's just kind of his yeah, people who have annoyed him. like that, like I don't have the time is a great example, but that's usually what he's writing about. In this case, I think he's writing about elevators. And I don't really know. I just thought it was fun to do kind of a very 90s power pop kind of, almost like something They Might Be Giants would do or something, like it's very like different and it's cool. It's fun because with all the like extra chorus sound and stuff that I have on my guitar, it's cool um to it's cool to play a little slower song because it literally lets that stuff ring out and be full. So I kind of like that about that song. It's another one we never play, but I think it's a great little song, and it's not. I don't think it's really about anything in particular.
I thought it was about elevators too.
I mean, I think that's mostly what it's about.
So,
Jeff will probably tell me I'm wrong. He'd be like, "No, Ian, it's about you know."
well, uh, yeah. Next time we have you back, you gotta have the guys with you, and so we can talk to
Yeah,
Jeff about that one.
yeah, man. Okay, that would be fun. I would love to hear him
Uh,
explain that.
how about the next one? So glad you're here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're you're getting the whole like the vibe here. Like, here's another COVID influenced song. I went to play a gig right after COVID. Half the people were wearing masks. Everybody had to have their card, their vaccine card to get in at a local club that we play at called Daryl's. Great club. Buddy of mine owns here in Seattle. Another one of the kind of remaining places that does small shows and punk gigs. And we were playing. I was super anxious, just being out, and I was like, "Fuck, my shirt doesn't fit," and it's everything, right? Like really uncomfortable. And we're playing this show, and I saw my buddy Doug walk in, and his girlfriend Lizzie, and like it was just such a pleasure to look out and see him there, just I was like, oh, so glad you're here, man. And um uh and that's kind of, you know um I guess I that was sort of the inspiration of that song. I try to, in a sense, relate my discomfort and anxiety about coming back and playing shows again in the immediate post-COVID aftermath with how I felt about playing shows when I first started, because I was very anxious when I first started back in the like 1988, and like I would just get so just turned around and lost in songs. And I remember having to warm up for 20 minutes before I would play because my hands would just freeze up like claws, like I was so anxious and uncomfortable. And so in a sense, I mean, I'm usually very comfortable playing on stage, being in front of people, talking in front of people, all that. It does not make me nervous at all anymore. But like all of a sudden coming back from COVID, I had some anxiety about being just in public, I think, less than on a stage, just being out and around people. And it was to me a little bit related back to it reminded me to some extent of how I felt about performing when I first started. So that's what that's. But then there's my good friends right there, and I was, for sure so
Well,
glad
that's
they're here.
cool. That sounds like you had some anxiety, but the comfort of your friends being there, helped you get over it.
I think that's
It's
right.
cool.
I think a lot of people, when COVID first kind of manifested itself, it was such a unknown outcome to this thing, you know, and it
Yeah.
was, um, especially if you lived in a city, we're fortunate from I was in New Orleans, and then way before COVID, then Hurricane Katrina hit and ran us out of there. So
Hmm.
I'm in North Alabama on a farm. I mean, I literally have cows. So we never stopped.
Wow.
I went to work every day. I had stuff to do out here every day. I mean, the music.
Right.
I was kind of out of that scene for a bit, but I was big into motorcycling and stuff, and then we went to a couple events with the bikes, and it was just weird when we stopped. Everybody kind of put your mask on, and we did some benefit rides for people who had died because of this, and it was just a
Yeah.
weird feel to the whole thing. It was
It was
insane. Now,
insane.
and we were not affected nearly as much, say, as someone who's in a city.
Yeah.
Nothing shut down here in small
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
USA. And I'm still trying to adjust to all of this. I've been here for almost 20 years. So I would be on
Yeah.
the phone with different people from up north in Jersey or what have you, and we can't get food, we can't get this, we can't go out, we're online for that. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is going on? And
It was such
it
a
was a mess.
discombobulating time. It was, I remember
How do
just
we get out of
thinking,
this?
how did we
Yeah,
get
yeah,
here? Like,
yeah.
it's so weird. I'd be out, I would go, it was so weird. Like, I would go out every day for a walk for a couple miles and listen to the news, which I shouldn't have
Right.
done. I should
Yeah, the
listen to
news will
music,
make
but
you
I
go
did
nuts.
listen to the news.
Right,
I really agree with that. It wasn't helping. And I would just, but I had to get out of the house because I was
right,
here with the
right.
kids and the cat and my wife all goddamn day and all goddamn night every day. And it was just driving me nuts. And I'm like, I'm getting out, I'm getting out. And then I would just be listening to I would just be listening to, the news and all the sketchy shit going on. And like, I would just be thinking, what the hell? This is so weird. Which hence that song, If We Ever Get Out of This
Right.
Mess. And it's weird now because we go out, we're in clubs, we're in restaurants, we're in crowds, we're on airplanes. I went to Riot Fest. I actually got COVID last year after Riot Fest. And I was sick for a week. And then I think I had brain fog for a while. I can't tell if it's because I'm over 50 or if it's because I have brain fog, but I had brain fog for a while, but you know, nobody was dying, but it's like, it's so different than
Right.
that time. And it's almost like a dream sometimes when you think back on that
Yeah.
time, you're like, it's almost like, did that really happen? I mean, it sounds
Right.
dumb, but like I almost am like,
Yeah, Twilight
did that
Zone thing. It's
happen?
like, well,
What the
what's
hell?
going on? And we managed to stay, pretty much COVID free until later on, where they
Nice.
changed all of the protocols from a medical
Yeah.
perspective. So, in the beginning,
Yeah.
there was, okay, immediately you were like on a ventilator, and they put you in this induced coma thing. It was a mess. You know, it was just so.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
That sounded
So it was just
terrifying.
now they got like, okay, you get COVID, you got Paxlovid, I think is the little Z
Yeah,
pack you
yeah.
get, and you go home. And so, but we tested positive twice. Once we felt a little, and the second time, asymptomatic, nothing. So I don't know if that was a false positive or whatever, but it was such a unique perspective for me because we didn't change, but everybody else I knew
Right.
in the cities were like, "This is the worst thing." I'm like, for me, like, there are
It
a
was
few little
bad.
restaurants that we have like down in town that were open. They spaced you apart. Everything was spotless clean. You could
Right.
smell the meats on. The menus didn't
Right.
have little fingerprints with mac and cheese on them. You know what I mean? Everything was. This is nice. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I'm like, I'm,
Shit was
I'm such,
squeaky.
such a nice experience to go to a clean restaurant, not sit in somebody's gum. That's like what it
You're
was.
kind of right. Yeah, it was
Hyper clean.
hyper
It was
clean
like,
for a while.
wow, it should stay like this, at least in the restaurants. I mean, but yeah, I definitely can relate to, you know, uh,
I mean, I had friends in big cities like New York and San Francisco and colleagues. They didn't go outside
oh,
for months and months and months. They stayed in there. We live kind of in a neighborhood with a lot of space at the north end of Seattle, so we could go out for a walk, you know, made a yard and stuff. But I knew people that were in like a no balcony apartment in San Francisco cooking. I mean, those people actually ended up just like buying a house in Oregon, like somewhere in like the middle
Get
of
out.
nowhere, Oregon, and sight unseen and just
Yeah,
moving. They were like, we have to be somewhere where we can
yeah,
go
and then
outside.
uh, RV recreational vehicle sales went through the roof. What do? Pack up and let's just go.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
so it changed everything. It changed a lot of lives. It really did. It
it
was
sure
such a
did.
weird
Yeah,
thing. But not to ramble on. I'll let Henry go on to the
No,
next
no.
thing.
Oh, I was about to say because me, I had to get a vaccination card and what do they call it? Some kind of I had to have a paper with me all the time saying that I was work important or some shit because I was still
Yeah,
working for the city transit
yep,
system security at that time. I just
yeah.
still I wasn't an
yep,
official via transit security officer yet. I was under contract at that point with Allied Universal, but my job was still the same at that point. But I had to carry around all that stuff, so I still had to get up and go to work every day. But the only good
yep.
thing that I can say that came out of all that time was that's when I learned how to do like proper guitar maintenance from like setting the truss rod and restringing
Right.
properly, polishing your fretboard and your what to use and
Yep.
doing string change and all that because no, even when things started to slowly open up, I went to go see at Sam Ash what they would charge for just a string change and a setup for an intonation and everything. And a guy wanted like $87, and I was like, dude, I'll just
Yeah.
go do this at my. I mean, luckily I had learned how to do it
Learn how
myself
to do
by
it.
then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm just gonna go home
Yeah.
and do this shit, dude. Just give me that, give me that pack of Dean Mark, please, right there or something.
Dude, I had never liked my grandmother's arroz con pollo recipe. And so I cooked arroz con pollo. I tried every recipe I could find. I cooked, I bet I cooked it 50, 100 times in COVID, multiple times a week. My kids to this day will not ever eat my arroz con pollo anymore. They're like, nope,
We're done.
had too much of that. And I was just like, I'm going to find a recipe that I like. And actually, it's funny you mentioned it's funny because I'm making that from after we get done here. I'm making that arroz con pollo. She likes
Synchronicity.
it still.
Oh,
But I was like, man, I am gonna learn how to make this dish
wow.
correctly, and I cooked it for a bajillion
That's funny.
Wow.
times.
Um. All right, so we're winding down to the last two tracks. All righty,
All
so
right.
what's up, fuckers?
Um, this is kind of like the idea of the song was to have a song that's about friendship, you know, not, driving people away. It's really easy. I don't know if you guys ever notice this, but I think as we get older as men, it's harder to
Mhm.
maintain friendships. It's really easy to go in our cave. They talk about the, lonely men epidemic and stuff like that. An epidemic of loneliness with, older men. And so it's easy to get separated and to be just a grouchy old guy watching TV and drinking beer in my house. And so it's a song about that, I guess, really, and the sort of joy of finding friends. And then we were, coming to a place where your friends are, and you're like, "Hey, what's up? It's great to see you." And we were trying to figure it out. And we were at one of these woodshed weekends. We rent a place in the country, and we go out there and just play all day for like 3 days, write songs, get tight and stuff. And somebody said, well, "What should be what's up, fuckers?" And like we were just cracking ourselves up, like just it's another one of those like the Henry Rollins one. We're like, "Oh, we're so funny," like just cracking ourselves up writing this song, and we're just like cry laughing, coming up with the backing vocals. You're my motherfucker, And the thing is, we just thought it was the funniest thing ever. Like we thought, "Oh, we're so clever," and then like it's actually so fun to play that song live because you're like, people, all right, here's the chorus, sing along with us, and then there's like a whole breakdown, and then people are like, whoa, my motherfucker, and it's a really fun song, and I think, other than the sort of, kind of being about friendship and and not being alone, you know, and not being the angry guy. It's also just about gratuitous fun swearing, and we never swear on our songs. And like, let's say the word fuck as many times as has ever been said in any song ever. It's like, it's not even a dirty song, right? It's just, it's like, well, I got the idea of What's Up Fuckers from, have you ever seen that movie,
Yeah,
Yeah,
American
yeah.
Pie?
yeah,
Well, okay, so, um, you know how the Stifler guy, his little brother, comes up to them and says, "Fuckers, fuckers, fuckers," like that. And they're like, he's like, "Stuart, don't swear. I told you not to say that," or whatever. I always thought that was the fucking funniest thing that kid would do that. And I was like, that's my favorite line out of that whole, out of that whole franchise, right? Like, is fuckers, fuckers, fuckers. And that's kind of a riff on that. And it's just super funny to say "What's up, fuckers" a million times, and "You're my motherfucker" a million times, and then the audience can do it. They love to swear too. Like, people are cracking up when they figure out what the lyric is live and stuff. So it's a fun one that actually you can sing along to, and people have fun singing along to it, even if they're not like knowing the rest of the
Yeah.
song. It doesn't matter. It's like the fucker part is enjoyable to them. So it started out as us just cracking ourselves up, but I think it actually, in a funny way, it really kind of works, uh, as a live
that's
song.
awesome. That's awesome. Now, the last track, it almost kind of reminds me of work because of work for the city via transit system. So around me, there's nothing but bus stops because where I work at the transit center, so it's a hub. So this kind of took me back
Yeah.
to work, but go ahead and elaborate on bus stop.
Yeah, I mean, basically for a while I was riding the bus to work, and I kept forgetting my bus pass, and like the place I had to get off downtown is like this McDonald's where all the drug dealers meet, and there's always shootings and stuff, and it's just always like people nodding out on whatever, on fentanyl or whatever down there. And here in Seattle we call that the murder stop,
Nice.
third and Pine. It's just like it is totally where people get murdered. Usually it's drug dealers shooting each other, and occasionally shooting a bystander because those guys are really bad shots. And so, like, it's the murder stop. Everybody knows it's the murder stop, and that's where I had to go to get to my job. I quit that job after a while, but like, that's kind of my, I got to get to the bus stop song. And then like, um, like this friend of ours band had written this song about how she lost her like work your keys or something, and had a really bad date, and like she lost her work pass and her keys. And I was thinking about that, and I wanted to make a song about bus passes. And so like, then like, I guess I also wanted it to be a little bit like, I don't know, like, how Communication Breakdown by Led Zeppelin is a little
Yeah,
bit punky sounding.
mhm,
It's like,
yeah.
it's like kind of a little bit punky. Um, I don't think they were trying for that, but it just kind of is. And so I kind of wanted to write like a sort of butt rocky, punky song that was kind of inspired by that. So that's where I got the idea for the kind of the lick, and then just to kind of play sort of like a Jimmy Page meets Greg Ginn guitar solo over it. So that's what it is. But it's obviously completely silly singing about bus stop.
I don't know. First half of it, where you're describing of, we got those places here in San Antonio. I mean, fortunately, where I work,
Yeah.
it's not as bad. But I did work at 5 years at this other one, and it's kind of like the gateway in between areas to one bad side and one good side of town. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a junction point. So
Right.
yeah, I always had my hands full. I met some really cool people there, but I always had my hands full at that place. So, but yeah, so I know
Right.
exactly what that, what that's all about. So, so one, a couple of things before we land this plane, because we've gone through. Um,
Yeah.
One thing I think me and John did want to bring up is the 27th, next Friday. The Karens. We interviewed their singer, their lead singer's guitar player, songwriter, Swam.
Yeah.
They kick off their West Coast tour, and they're kicking it off in Seattle at the Kraken.
Now that is what. Let me look. Let me look here. Let me check my calendar because I want to see that, but I'm afraid. I hope I'm
No,
not
you're
blocking
good.
the
You're good.
window
Yeah, you're
here.
good.
Let me take a look. I'd look on my phone, but you're on my phone. Calendar. Let's see here. Feel like when is that show? Okay, no, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Playing Under the Bridge the next week. That's awesome. They're at the
Yes.
Kraken, the
Yeah,
Karens.
yeah.
All right, I'm putting
Yeah,
it in my calendar
go
right
check
now.
them out. You will not be disappointed, bro. And if you do get a shout out to them, tell them
Yep,
that the Inertia Channel crew sends them love and respect.
I'll
Yeah,
do it.
but you definitely
I
need to
will do
go
it.
check them out, man. And if you can snap us a little bit of footage of maybe a couple of songs or something and send it to us, and we'll upload
Yeah,
that
sure.
too.
Yeah, I'll do it
Yeah,
with my iPhone.
cool.
No
So
problem.
if
Um,
go ahead, Henry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Now, I was just going to ask if our listeners wanted to contact you or order a CD or what have you, I'm sure you have social media or what's your
Yeah.
contact information?
Best place is to go to
Okay,
www.thesubjunctives.com. We got all the stuff there. All our records are there, t-shirts, stickers, show dates, videos, streaming, all the social connections too. So yeah, the subjunctives.com, and you can get all the
okay,
good
cool,
stuff.
cool, definitely.
And we're on like Facebook and Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel for videos. We have a TikTok, but I don't know. I never do anything
Yeah,
on there. I'm too
TikTok,
old for
but
that.
I found I don't actively, I'm not actively on TikTok. But when with Crimson Carrie, my singer was real big into the whole social media thing. She was quite a bit younger than us. Um, so at one point, we started doing a live TikTok rehearsal. Just I mean, literally just from one of these guys walking around a phone. We just the whole rehearsal, the good, the bad, the ugly. We just did a live TikTok rehearsal at the studio, and it got to the point where we had
It's fun.
150,000 views. I was like, what is going
Amazing.
on? So at that time, that platform, I'm not sure how it is now because of all the, TikTok is bad or whatever. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was such a hot platform to be on.
Right.
And I didn't
Right.
realize. So I asked, our singer, I was like, how many people are watching this? I mean, I'm doing stupid faces and making mistakes, and we're like, do it again, do it. We're just goofing off, but we're rehearsing. We're literally, just a live scenario. But they loved it
So
because
awesome.
it was real. It wasn't, it was just live. And we went over all these songs.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, but 150,000. I'm like, what? How is that
That's
even
insane.
possible?
That's
So,
so
like I said, I'm
great.
not sure. Like Facebook, Instagram, that's kind of the staple, I think. But I'm not sure
Yeah.
how TikTok is going to wind up. How is that going to land? Because at one point it
Yeah, I don't
so
know either.
exploded so much, and then we're going to ban it, we're going to shut it down, and people started jumping ship. here and there. So I'm just not sure at this juncture where a platform like TikTok, how does that? What's their standing now? You know what I mean? Are there that many people that are
Yeah.
still like really, so heavy into TikTok, or is there something else that
Yeah.
developed in lieu of the possibility of it shutting down? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Yeah. My teenage daughter
yeah,
would
you gotta
know.
find a kid. You
I
gotta,
don't know.
what's the latest hottest thing? What do we do? You know,
Yeah,
because
right.
I mean, like I said,
It's like, Dad, you're too old for
I'm not big
this.
into it. I do a little Facebook, we do the YouTube channel, a little bit of this and that, but I just wasn't big into the TikTok thing, but she was, and the numbers were just
Yeah,
astounding. I was like,
that is
you
amazing.
know,
Actually, I had no
so
idea.
again, I don't know where TikTok where to wind up. You know what I mean? It was way up here, and everybody was like, that was the biggest rage, and then it kind of started to settle a bit. So I'm not sure where it is. I'm kind of curious. I think I have to look into that. To see kind of what's going on with it and stuff like that. Because we have some stuff coming up too. I'm like, where do we post it? Where do we get the biggest bang for our buck? Who's really going to see this thing? So same thing with this channel.
Right.
How do we get it to go more broader? How do we make it explode to more than what we have? And it's picking up for sure. Henry has got a lot of influence on that, and we have someone handling our social media, Ed T.
Yeah,
Actually,
Nice.
guy,
yeah,
because we're like, oh, how do you hashtag all this? I don't know what I'm doing. What do we do?
yeah.
So,
Luckily, we got a great guy, Ed T.
shout out to Henry for sure. But
Yeah,
uh,
he handles all our Facebook and all the other stuff, the
yeah,
Instagram stuff, all that, all that stuff for us. So he's part of the Inertia Channel crew too. So and
most definitely.
I got a team with me now. It was the first time we talked. It was just me, the laptop, and the cell phone. So
So
John came aboard to help me out, and then we wanted to expand it, and we had Ed T was actually a super fan of ours, and like anything we did, he was always the first one to like
respond.
respond and
Yeah,
positive comments and everything. So when we wanted to do a Facebook too, I was like, well, we're so busy wrapped up doing the channel. I said, let me ask Ed if he'll do our Facebook and social media, the other social media, and fortunately for us, he said yes, and he's doing a really really good job. So yeah, we love Ed a lot. We owe him a
yeah,
lot too.
we need them. We need them for sure. But
Yeah.
then to have people like you come on is definitely a plus for us. I mean, it's just been a great conversation for sure. You're definitely um, a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm just a super nice guy, man. It's been my pleasure. I know Henry, I talked to you before. This is the first time we met, and it's been an honor to have this conversation with you for sure.
I really thank you so much for
No
having me. It was
problem.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
lighthearted. Even when we lost you, we're like, okay, what do we do? So it's just they were like, oh, he'll be back, and we're talking about whatever, it's like, about a minute later, hey, there you go, it happened before. Before we just keep
Sorry,
going.
guys.
It's like, they'll figure it out. We'll be back, so whatever. But I think that's the cool part about what we do is we don't cut. We figure it out, we keep rolling, and then the person that comes back, we just keep trucking along. So we want to thank you for sure
Good.
for being a part of our show and entertaining our questions and being definitely a great guest for sure. We had a lot of fun with this whole show. And best of luck to all the stuff, all your future stuff, and definitely have a new fan in me. I'm going to get on your site. I want yeah, you got some cool
Def-
stuff. So that,
Definitely.
That's
No
so
problem.
awesome. Thank you so
yes,
much. I really appreciate you guys making time for me and the subjunctives and all the questions and just keep doing what you're doing. It's great. It's awesome to see it, and I'm happy you're doing it. And
And thank
thanks
you
for
as
the
well.
support.
And the next time, Ian, we got to have the guys. We got to have the rest of
Yeah.
the guys with you. So
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, man, that's
We'll
something
do
to
it.
look forward to
We'll
in the
do it.
future. And we look forward to hearing good things from the subjunctives in the future. And yeah, man. So guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Ian, thank you for so much for your time, and we'll catch up with you soon. I hope. Um, John,
Indeed.
we're gonna go ahead and sign off.
Rock on,
Um,
everybody. Don't
and
forget to like and subscribe to our channel and for more great content. And we were going to definitely have Ian on again. Had a great conversation. I mean, I had a lot of fun.
yep. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
I'll see you
And
next
we'll
time.
see you in the next video.
We'll see you.
Catch you
All right,
soon,
take care.
guys.
All right. Have fun.